Ric Flair has faced death more times than most could imagine, surviving 2 near-fatal surgeries, burying 2 sons, and drinking enough alcohol to destroy 10 men, yet at 76, the wrestling legend now confronts his toughest opponent. Mortality itself, a fight that no fame, fortune, or iconic woo can overcome, and his reality today is deeply heartbreaking. The Nature Boy's life at this age is not just the story of a wrestling icon growing old, but of a man who has stared death in the face repeatedly, endured the unthinkable loss of children, and continues to fight every single day simply to live, showing remarkable resilience intertwined with tragedy, comebacks shadowed by devastating losses, and a refusal to fade quietly despite a body and circumstances that demand slowing down. In August 2017, Ric Flair's life took a drastic turn when he was rushed to the hospital with seemingly routine medical issues that quickly escalated into a life-threatening crisis, including multiple organ failure, intestinal surgery, kidney failure that shut down his body's filtration, and complications so severe that doctors placed him in a medically induced coma, giving him only a 5% chance of survival, a statistic that would force any family to brace for the worst. For weeks, Flair hovered between life and death, battling infections and systemic failures far removed from a wrestling ring. Yet this wasn't his first encounter with mortality, as he had been defying the odds since October 4, 1975, when at just 26 he survived a plane crash in Wilmington, North Carolina, which killed the pilot, left fellow wrestler Johnny Valentine paralyzed, and broke Flair's back in 3 places. The injuries from that plane crash were so severe that doctors told Ric Flair his wrestling career was over before it had really begun, warning he might never walk properly again, let alone perform the physically demanding art of professional wrestling. But Flair, true to his name, proved them wrong, returning to the ring just 6 months later in February 1976 to resume his feud with Wahoo McDaniel, a near-death experience that reshaped his style from a power-based brawler into the technical, high-flying performer fans came to worship and gave birth to the Nature Boy persona that would dominate wrestling for decades. So when doctors gave him only a 5% chance of survival in 2017, Flair had already shown he could beat impossible odds, and once again he defied medical predictions and statistics, waking from a coma to begin the long, painful road to recovery, though the complications from that crisis continued to affect him, including a pacemaker installation in 2019 as a permanent reminder of how close he had come to death. And in a February 2025 social media post, Flair reflected with deep gratitude, acknowledging that every morning was a gift and every breath borrowed time. Yet fate was not done with him, as in 2022, at age 73, he chose to step back into the ring for what he had built as his final match on July 31st at the StarCast 5 event in Nashville, a decision that tested his resilience once more. This match was meant to be Ric Flair's redemption, his chance to retire on his own terms after regretting previous retirement matches in TNA, as he teamed with his son-in-law Andrade El Idolo in a 27-minute tag match to defeat Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal in front of over 6,800 fans. But what unfolded was deeply alarming, as Flair passed out twice during the match, not as part of the show, but because something was seriously wrong, with observers noting him disoriented and lost amid the signature chops and figure-4 leg locks that had defined his career. And though he initially blamed severe dehydration, being on blood thinners, and forgetting to drink water while preparing for the match, even drinking beers immediately after in celebration, the shocking truth revealed months later was far graver. In May 2024, on the Jackson podcast, Flair disclosed he had actually suffered a legitimate heart attack during that July 2022 match, with a cardiologist confirming his heart had stopped for 10 seconds, yet he somehow continued wrestling, creating a cruel irony as he unknowingly acted out a scripted heart attack spot in front of his daughter Megan while a real medical emergency was happening, turning what was supposed to be a triumphant farewell into the worst-rated wrestling event of 2022 by WrestleCrap readers, not because of the performer's efforts, but because watching a 73-year-old man literally risk his life in the ring was uncomfortable and deeply concerning for anyone with a conscience. And in the aftermath of that fateful match, Ric Flair expressed deep regret about how it played out, admitting on his To Be the Man podcast in January 2023 that he wished he could redo it, not out of a desire to wrestle again, but simply to have done it differently. And yet the health challenges kept coming, as if he were caught in a relentless cosmic test, with June 2025 bringing news that he had been diagnosed with skin cancer, melanoma, for the second time, forcing him to postpone fan events and undergo surgery in early July, leaving the wrestling world anxious over whether this battle might finally overcome the Nature Boy. But true to form, by late July 2025 Flair declared himself cancer-free after successful treatment at the Academic Alliance in Dermatology, sharing photos of bandages on his forehead and shoulder as proof of the surgeries, giving updates that he felt great though one more procedure was pending, and rather than resting or taking it easy, he immediately returned to intense workouts, posting videos at 76 years old pushing himself on rowing machines, fan bikes, sleds, and battle ropes, even captioning one, "It's not about how bad you want it, it's about how hard you're willing to work for it." A clear testament that his dedication to fitness is more than just words.
Jacked back then too.
Yeah, I was pretty healthy.
How much did you, since you're doing that much touring and that much wrestling, how much time did you get to like work out? Or did you
I worked out every day, no matter what. No matter what. If I got in at 4 in the morning, I worked out at 5.
Fans watching Ric Flair's workout videos have hailed him as the GOAT and a legend, inspired by his refusal to let age, illness, or near-death experiences slow him down, as there's something both inspiring and heartbreaking about seeing a 76-year-old man push through grueling routines as if to prove to the world or maybe to himself that death hasn't won yet. But the health battles of 2025 weren't done with him. As in July, he was scheduled to appear at AEW's Blood and Guts event, only to leave early after a brief promo due to severe pain from a torn rotator cuff, an injury confirmed by Ricky Steamboat and Dave Meltzer that required MRIs and medical evaluation, and Flair later publicly apologized for disappointing fans, revealing the internal struggle of a man who wants desperately to show up, perform, and be the nature boy everyone remembers, yet whose 76-year-old body, after plane crashes, multiple surgeries, organ failures, heart attacks, and cancer, cannot always meet the demands of his spirit. While earlier in 2025 he had also been forced to debunk false social media rumors claiming he had cancer, affirming he was fine and planning to be around for decades more, highlighting the tragic reality that, despite his legendary status, the public now almost expects bad health news about him. Through all of this, the near-fatal organ failure, the heart attack during his last match, the skin cancer diagnosis, the torn rotator cuff, Ric Flair has maintained an almost defiant optimism that feels almost supernatural, with his social media filled with auto-tuned videos and motivational posts, always ending with that trademark woo that has echoed through wrestling arenas for over 50 years. Yet the heartbreak is clear when you consider that this is a man who cannot stop, will not stop, refusing to accept the natural limits that age and circumstance place on humans, leaving you to wonder if his relentless drive comes from genuine passion for life or from an inability to face a quieter existence after decades of being the nature boy, and part of that struggle is rooted in family heartbreak and personal loss, as Flair has been married 5 times. Leslie Goodman from 1971 to 1983, with whom he had daughter Megan and son David, Elizabeth Harold from 1983 to 2006, mother of daughter Ashley, WWE superstar Charlotte Flair, and son Reed, Tiffany Vandermark from 2006 to 2009, Jackie Beams from 2009 to 2014, and Wendy Barlow in a non-legally binding ceremony in 2018 after dating for 13 years, with that relationship exemplifying the chaos of his personal life in recent years as they separated in January 2022, reconciled briefly, and split again in September 2024, creating emotional whiplash compounded by ongoing health crises and the unrelenting public spotlight of being a wrestling legend. Now, at 76, you might expect Ric Flair to be content with companionship or solitude, but in November 2025, he revealed he is seeking his forever life partner and even expressed a desire to start a family again after 5 failed marriages, a statement both admirably hopeful and heartbreakingly naive, showing a man who refuses to accept that some dreams may no longer be realistic, or perhaps someone desperately seeking to fill a void that decades of fame, championship belts, and adulation could never satisfy. Yet these failed marriages, as painful as they are, pale in comparison to the absolute tragedy in Flair's relationship with his children. As on March 29, 2013, his son Reed died at 25 from a drug overdose, a young man who had briefly wrestled in WCW alongside his siblings and carried the weight of the Flair name, leaving a wound that would never fully heal, with the circumstances making it even more devastating, as Reed had struggled with substance abuse, a battle all too common among children of famous parents under immense pressure, and Flair's relationship with Reed involved agonizing tough love decisions, including choices about his living situation, the kind of heartbreaking decisions parents of addicts must face while trying to help their children and maintain boundaries, forcing Ric Flair after decades as the invincible nature boy, projecting confidence and strength to confront a painful reality that no amount of money, fame, or legendary status could prevent the death of his own son. For a man who built his identity on talking his way out of anything, on being the man, there were no words that could change the reality of Reed's death. Yet as devastating as that loss was, the universe seemed determined that Ric Flair hadn't endured enough family tragedy, as in October 2024, his stepson Sebastian KD, from his relationship with Wendy Barlow out of respect, yet the lingering pain of suicide, unanswered questions, guilt, replaying interactions, searching for missed signs, was a burden Flair already knew from losing Reed, making the second loss, even of a stepson, feel like an unending nightmare, as the timeline underscores the weight of it. Reed died in 2013, leaving 12 years of grief and daily reflection on what could have been done differently, only for Sebastian's death in 2024 to reopen that wound. As if the universe told Flair, "You thought you'd endured the worst? Try this again." And while Flair's surviving children David, a retired wrestler, Ashley, known as Charlotte Flair, and Megan, a mother and grandmother remain, these relationships have reportedly been strained at times, unsurprising given Flair's admitted lifestyle during his wrestling prime, with multiple wrestlers and friends recounting stories of his legendary, and by legendary, truly excessive, way of living, painting a picture crucial to understanding the family dysfunction that followed.
I got a six-pack to go back to the airport, drank it right out. I had 3 hours before the flight left. I went into a bar there and I drank 10 double tequila, cranberry, and soda. 10 doubles, right? Got on an airplane and drank 8 Bloody Marys to Tampa. Got off the plane and drank a six-pack.
Given what you've been through, why drink?
Because I enjoy it.
That's not an exaggeration. Such days were typical for Ric Flair during his wrestling prime, with Hulk Hogan noting that in 30 years of knowing him, Flair's lifestyle was legendary for its excess, including a moment when Flair attempted 30 days of sobriety, only to walk across the street to a bar and hand in his sobriety chip, perfectly illustrating the extremes that defined his life both inside and outside the ring.
It's a plug to Marriott, I'd say. You don't have to ride, you don't have to go to Disney World to ride Space Mountain. 18 to 28, no boyfriends, no husbands. The Marriott, and I'd give that address of the Marriott. Right,
they'd come visit you at the hotel?
There'd be 300 in the lobby.
Now, imagine being one of Ric Flair's children during this time, with a father who was rarely home, having wrestled 426 matches in a single year and constantly traveling, and when stories of him did reach home, they were filled with drinking, partying, and behavior that ranged from wild to outright problematic. As Flair himself admitted in an ESPN 30 for 30 documentary to having around 10,000 sexual partners over his career and consuming roughly 15 drinks a day for 20 years, describing his infamous post-match routine that became legendary among peers and fans alike.
I was a guy soap opera, and there's no girls at the hotel, even if they know what we're saying. And in social media, the guys don't go out anymore. That just changed. I would have never survived this.
Right. This current climate?
This wasn't a father who stayed home for dinner, helped with homework, or attended school plays. It was a man consumed by his persona, living the nature boy gimmick 24/7 and sacrificing family stability for fame. And while Flair has expressed regret over the years, no amount of remorse can undo decades of absence, compounded by financial stress as well. Because despite earning up to $800,000 annually at his peak, his net worth by 2024 was only around $500,000 due to tax issues, extravagant spending, costly divorces, and failed business ventures, including IRS seizures in 2005, unpaid taxes of $280,000 in 2019, and still owing $239,971 for 2016 and 2018, borrowing $800,000 from WWE Chairman Vince McMahon, later forgiven to cover debts, spending $40,000 on custom robes, $200,000 on jewelry in 2009, and $14,000 on Christmas gifts while accumulating massive debt, plus a failed business venture, Ric Flair Finance, that went bankrupt in less than a year, and even in December 2024 he claimed a mystery man owed him $2 million from a decades-old deal, showing that at 76, after surviving so much, he still wrestles with financial demons from his past, yet his unbreakable spirit refuses to slow down or accept the natural limits of age and circumstance, which is inspiring in some ways but almost tragic in others, like watching someone run from something they can never truly escape. And his 2025 social media presence has been a mix of motivation and controversy, including a June post with a joke about sexual consent that drew backlash and mocking fellow wrestling legend Jim Ross during Ross colon cancer recovery, calling him attention-seeking. Despite having faced serious health battles himself, Ric Flair has not been immune to controversy, as fans accused him of damage control when he followed up provocative social media posts with sentimental health tweets. And wrestling personality Dutch Mantel once criticized his IQ, prompting a sharp retort from Flair, fueling calls for his cancellation, with some labeling him problematic and polarizing, a pattern extending well beyond 2025, including past allegations of racism from wrestlers like Teddy Long and sexual harassment claims from flight attendants during the infamous 2002 plane ride from hell, where he was accused of walking naked under his robe and cornering staff. resurfaced in the 2021 Dark Side of the Ring documentary, while his 2023 AEW signing sparked outrage among fans and wrestlers questioning Tony Khan's decision, ultimately leading to Flair leaving AEW by July 2024 after pitching in used ideas like turning on Sting, painting a complex picture where his in-ring genius coexists with personal flaws, leaving a divided fanbase, some hailing him as a legend, others seeing him as outdated or toxic, with documentaries romanticizing his excesses but social media amplifying criticism. Yet despite controversies, health scares, and personal tragedies, Flair persists, vowing never to wrestle again in January 2025 via X, thanking his body for the conditioning that allowed him to, and affirming in a January 2025 five-star podcast interview that while he could physically handle another match, AEW President Tony Khan would not permit it due to blood thinners, as Flair focuses on health rather than returning to the ring. But what does focusing on health look like for someone like Ric Flair? Apparently, it looks like posting gym videos where he tackles 3-minute plank challenges, battles with ropes, and pushes sleds, captioning one, "It's not about how bad you want it, it's about how hard you're willing to work for it." And there's something both inspiring and sad about watching a 76-year-old man who has survived multiple brushes with death, buried children, and has every reason to take it easy, yet still pushes himself in the gym, proving something, but what, and to whom? Perhaps to himself, because after a lifetime of being the man, as he's always said, to be the man, you've got to beat the man, and Flair can't accept being anything less, as slowing down or accepting age and mortality might feel like defeat to someone whose identity was built on being indestructible, unstoppable, and unbeatable, or maybe, heartbreakingly, the workouts, appearances, and constant activity are a way to avoid sitting still with his thoughts, because when he is quiet, the grief catches up. He remembers Reed's funeral, thinks of Sebastian, relives every health scare, near-death experience, failed marriage, and the regret of time lost with his children while he was busy being the nature boy. Yet Flair remains engaged with wrestling through podcast appearances and social media, supports charities, lives in Lawrenceville, Georgia, and has launched business ventures in an effort to rebuild the fortune he once lost. He's even expressed a desire to find his forever life partner and potentially start another family at 76. And that detail, wanting to start a family at his age after everything he's endured, is perhaps the clearest window into who Ric Flair is today, showing a man still holding on to hope, still believing in the possibility of connection, love, and building something meaningful, which can feel either admirably optimistic or heartbreakingly naive depending on how you view it. And that duality extends to his public persona, indestructible because he has survived multiple brushes with death, yet controversial because his behavior, past and present, often clashes with modern sensibilities and basic human decency, leaving wrestling fans with a complicated truth where you can acknowledge his incredible contributions: 16 official world championships, though counts vary, with Flair claiming 25, 6 Match of the Year awards, and iconic moments like his WrestleMania V retirement match against Shawn Michaels, while also recognizing he has done and said problematic things throughout his life. And as Flair himself has noted, the wrestling business has changed dramatically since his heyday, with social media and evolving cultural standards making it clear he could never survive in today's climate.